we all win. So what separates the two hemispheres of the cerebrum?
Longitudinal fissure.
Longitudinal fissure. Big crack down. All right, big bad hairy questions before we continue forth on our educational journey. All right, so we left off with our cerebellum. So our cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain. Externally, it's going to be gray matter. Internally, it's going to be white matter. So again, it's going to be myelinated on the inside. The wrinkles of the cerebellum are called folia. And again, it gets that name because the white matter is called the arbor vitae, the tree of life. So somebody thought leaves on a tree. Folia would be the wrinkles that would be attached to the arbor vitae or white matter. Now, the neural cortex, again, is on the outside, so that's gray matter, neuron cell bodies, dendrites, unmyelinated axons. Now, up the middle of the cerebellum, we have a structure called the vermis. This vermis, the term means worm because somebody thought it looked like a worm. To me, it looks more like when you pull a drawstring and you get the wrinkled fabric past that drawstring, but it's kind of that midline wrinkle within the cerebellum. So there's our cerebellum with its folia, and we can see the vermis down the middle. I guess if you use your imagination, it looks like a worm, like really good imagination. And there's our cross section, so we can see the arbor vitae, our tree of life. It kind of looks like a tree or cauliflower. And then you've got the folia that's on it. Now, our cerebellum is going to function at both the conscious and the subconscious level. And its job is to continuously compare what the cerebrum tells the body to do with what the body is actually doing. It's kind of like when you tell your kids to clean their room, you need to check it every now and then to make sure they're actually cleaning their room. So whenever the brain, the cerebrum says walk 5 feet, the cerebellum is going to make sure that you walk 5 feet, that you stop when you're supposed to, that you don't fall over while you're doing it. So it's going to help to coordinate that muscular activity so we can have good balance and equilibrium, predicting when to start and stop those movements. So coordinates reflexes to help maintain our balance equilibrium. So in order to do this, sensory information about balance and equilibrium is coming to the cerebellum from the proprioceptors, so those intrafusal muscle fibers, the Golgi tendon organs, the skin, the joints, the muscles. We're also going to have information coming in from the special senses, our eyes and our ears. And again, this is why when you spin with your eyes open, you feel very different than when you spin with your eyes closed, because some of that visual input is going to go to the cerebellum so we can use it to determine the horizon if we're tilted and stuff like that. Now, if we have damage to the cerebellum, we're not going to be able to control our body like we're supposed to. So we'll end up with some tremors. You can end up with loss of muscle tone because we don't contract enough. You can end up with inaccurate movements of those voluntary muscles. So you go to do one movement and something else happens. And you can also end up with them reeling walk. So a lot of times, patients who look or who have damage to the cerebellum often look like they're drunk. They run into the wall, they stumble, they fall a lot. So it's very common for people who have damage to their cerebellum to be put into a wheelchair, not because they are paralyzed, but because it's safer for them to roll around in a wheelchair than it is to try to walk and constantly run into things and fall over and injure themselves. So sometimes you may be put in that wheelchair even though you can move, just for safety measures. All right, our cerebrum. So the cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain, making up 83% of our brain. It's often described as our conscious mind. So this is where we're doing our plotting, thinking, processing, all that fun jazz. We also do have parts of it that work at the subconscious level. So you're not always aware of what the cerebrum is doing. Again, this is what led to that myth that you only use 10% of your brain. You use 100%, anything less than 100%, you're in a coma or you're dead. So you do use all of your brain, but we're only consciously aware of certain amounts of our functionality. It's kind of like when you use a computer, even though you're using Word, there's a lot of program going on in the background, the fans going, all kinds of stuff like that, that you're not always aware of. Same thing with the body. So we use the whole brain. It's just that we're not consciously aware of everything going on. Now we have two cerebral hemispheres. They're going to be joined by a structure called the corpus callosum. This corpus callosum is actually unique to placental mammals, so we don't see